Hello and welcome to Wisdom Bites. Hope you're well. Thank you once again for joining us. Very much appreciated. And in today's video, I'm going to be looking at the various charts like the dollar, having a look at the price action. I'll also be looking at and asking questions such as, have we got another leg down in the Bitcoin price? Or have we made a lower double bottom? And are we going to have a V-shaped recovery? And if that sounds interesting, then drop everything, get yourself a cup of tea, sit yourself down, eyes on the screen, and let's load up the Bitcoin vault. But before I begin, the usual polite reminder, please remember everything in my videos is for educational purposes. Please don't take anything as financial advice. Everyone has their own responsibility to do their wider research before you make any important decisions. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start off on the dollar chart, and I'm on the daily time frame here, just to give you the overall picture of what's just happened. In my last video, I mentioned the critical price of 109, because what we've had is this trend line which the dollar has been hogging all along up till now. And I said that once we break the 109 up here, that should set off a motion to come to the downside, 12 to 18 months, maybe even longer. Also, in my last video, I covered the CPI data, which was going to come out on Thursday, the following day of the video. If it came below expectations of the inflation rate, then we could expect a fall below this trend line here. The expected inflation rate was going to be about 8.2%, and we came in at 7.7%. I don't think we're out of the woods yet, because in December, the Fed will be meeting at exactly the time when the next inflation figures are going to be coming out. And that really will be the trigger for them raising the interest rates to either 25 basis points, 50 basis points, or what they've been doing recently in the last 4 or 5 months of 75 basis points. If the inflation figures continue to come in lower than expectations, then obviously I don't expect the Fed to be raising the interest rates by 0.75%. So depending on the inflation figures in December and what the Fed decides, that will really set in motion exactly what will happen to the dollar here. So we'll just have to wait and see in the next 4 weeks. Obviously, there'll be other data which will preempt that, which will give us a good guide, but it's really the critical meeting is in December when the inflation figures come out at the same time as the Fed will be deciding the interest rate rises. The last time we had these interest rate rises back in 2008 and 9, this is what happened to the dollar then. And once the interest rates started to climb down, this is what happened to the dollar as we were coming down. So this is what we can expect once the pivot occurs with the Fed changing their interest rate policy. Only time will tell, but it's very important to keep a note of this in the background. The weekly chart, as you can see here, is very telling what's about to happen. And as I mentioned in my last week's video, this gravestone doji has a very powerful effect, because this is what it did to the Bitcoin price back in June 2019. Once we printed that, we didn't have a close above it for a very, very long time. If we have a look at the price of Bitcoin, we need to really ascertain where do we go from where we are now over here. Obviously, we've broken the 17.5 on this purple line, and we've made a couple of attempts in the last couple of days now to get back up. We haven't succeeded yet, and it begs the question, are we using this otherwise support line as a resistance to come back to the downside? But before I go into that, it now looks to me that this head and shoulders pattern seems to have been playing out for the break to the downside here. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you'll know that the way this head and shoulders was forming wasn't the classic head and shoulders. And there was another classical charting pattern called the compound fulcrum, where you got the fulcrum here and you got this balance developing, which you normally get at the bottom of very strong dominating bear markets. You get this fulcrum pattern, and this is what I thought was developing here. But obviously there was a head and shoulders pattern there as well, and obviously it's now broken to the downside here, breaking this neckline here, which was around the 19,000 of this head and shoulders. If you take a measure that if this is a head and shoulders that's broken down, then you have to take it from the top of the fulcrum here to the breakout, which is over here, and that's at around about 24% from the top at 25 down to about 19,000. So if you measure the 24% from here, that will take you around about to 14,500. However, if you measure it to the 17.5, depending on how you want to measure this, so from the 25.2 to the 17.5, that would take it to a 30%. And 30% from the purple line would take it to 12,000. And that would fit in with most people's narrative who were talking about the bear market scenario here, that it could go down to those levels. However, there are quite a few things to really look out for before we can really decide where it's going. For me, the volume being very, very high, as I showed you in the last video, we've had about 3 capitulations in this bear market, and this is the largest of the capitulations, as you can see from here. To me, this looks like the sellers have been exhausted, which would then lend to the theory and the narrative and to a thesis that we may well have a V-shaped recovery very similar to the COVID situation, which we got here. So it doesn't always have to be a double bottom to go up. We can have this type of recovery, which is called a V-shaped recovery. But we normally do get a double bottom pattern before we start going up. So we do normally create at the bottom of a bear market a double bottom pattern. And actually a lower bottom pattern, that would suggest a triple bottom, as we can see here. And what it says is that the most important part of this triple bottom pattern is when the bulls manage to drive the stock to break above the neckline, and this breakout is your signal to trade bullish. The triple bottom is a stronger pattern than the double bottom because of the 3 attempts to make a new low. So how that translates is this: you've got this double bottom which was actually forming and about to go back up, and it's fizzled to the sideways. And this was really the point where you would have expected, with the CPI data coming out, to have made it to go much higher. However, with the FTT situation, the bears tried to make a lower low here, and it's now caused a 3rd bottom here. So this is what you now call a triple bottom. And usually, if the 3rd bottom is lower than the first 2, you usually get a much bigger spring to go back to the upside. And as I've mentioned many times in my videos, if we get a pattern like this, a double bottom pattern, and the 2nd bottom or the 3rd bottom, let's call it this one here, goes below the neckline and we can recapture the neckline, then that causes a much stronger spring for the bounce up here. So what we really need to do is to recapture the 17,500 on a few daily closes to give people the confidence that we have actually bottomed out here before it really takes off. Otherwise, the alternative will be like in 2018 when we had this big fall over here. So we had this big fall, then the market tried to recapture this neckline over here, failed to do so, and we had another leg down here, and then another one, and then another one. If we cascade down that way, then this level here would probably take it down to around about the 12,000, even to as low as 10.5. So these are the possibilities that I'm looking at. It would be very interesting to know what your feelings are. Where do you think the market is going now that we've had this breakout? Do you think that this is the bottom here at 15.5, or do we have a few more legs down towards the $12,000 mark? Let me know in the comment section. We'll leave it there for today. I hope you found value in the video. If you did, then please do remember to like and subscribe and to turn on the notification bell. And if you do have any other comments, questions or suggestions, then leave them in the comments below. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.